Welcome to SVG-TV News for Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. 34 more Vincentians, including 29 crew members from TUI and Carnival Cruise Lines, are expected to be repatriated home from the United Kingdom via Barbados this evening. A news release from the National Emergency Management Organization (NEMO) said on arrival at the Argyle International Airport, the nationals will be processed according to the established repatriation protocol aimed at minimizing the risk of any new introduction of COVID-19 to SVG. NEMO said additional repatriations of Vincentians will continue throughout June 2020 and will include crew members from the Norwegian Cruise Line Company and Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. The news release further noted that by the end of today, 122 crew members from the Carnival Cruise Line and the Disney Cruise Line will successfully complete their mandatory quarantine. It was also noted that the two outstanding COVID-19 PCR results for the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line crew members were received on Saturday, May 30th, 2020, and were both negative. NEMO said this batch of results from CAFRA also confirmed the recovery of another COVID-19 positive person, bringing to 15 the number of persons who have so far recovered from COVID-19 in SVG. This means that there are now 11 active cases of the virus in the country. The Health Subcommittee is reminding the public of the continued importance of maintaining the public health measures currently in place, which include hand hygiene, cough etiquette, physical distancing of at least 3 to 6 feet in public spaces, the smart use of masks, and strict adherence to quarantine and isolation. The release said these measures are even more critical now that hundreds of Vincentians are returning home and intra-regional travel increases. And speaking on NBC Radio today, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said the 32 Vincentians being repatriated are expected to arrive home on a chartered Liat flight from Barbados.
For today's the 3rd of June. These are persons who are on the TUI ship. Remember, I'd given information on that earlier. They were off the harbour in Southampton. The 30 of them plus 4 of the Vincentians were trying to make the flight. I've been reporting how High Commissioner Lewis in London has been in touch with crew members, and we have been trying to get the owners of the vessels to work out some arrangements. It has been real problematic, but there's a charter which is coming out.
The Prime Minister said that a chartered flight is being taken care of by the cruise lines and that there are 60 British nationals in SVG who will also be returning to their homeland, arranged by the British government.
Sending planes to take up their own nationals. And there are about 60 out of them in St. Vincent who are going to be picked up. Over these few days, at least that's the tentative arrangement as it was drawn to my attention. And they're going to Barbados, those from England, and Liat is taking them. Well, all this is at the cost of the transfer, would be at the cost of the owners of the vessels.
As it regards to the sailors who are on a cruise ship from Royal Caribbean Cruise Line docked in Barbados, PM Gonsalves said that there is no confirmed date for their arrival home. The Prime Minister used the opportunity to appeal to all rig workers to reach out to his office if they need assistance to bring them home.
I'd like it to move from those who have been on the oil rigs. And I make the appeal again. For, I mean, if a few of you are in a house and you know about elsewhere, try and use your telephone there now, get the information, put it together, do something. Because we don't, when you all are going, you all don't tell us. There's no obligation on you to tell the state. It is just that when you find yourself in a difficulty, we'd like certainly to help.
Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday is still of the view that SVG's borders should have been closed to lessen the cases of the coronavirus in the country. SVG has 24 confirmed cases of the virus. 15 persons have recovered with 11 active cases. Speaking on the WFM last evening, the opposition leader said his concern is not about returning nationals, but the plans going forward to accommodate other persons coming into the country.
The challenge that we have, of course, is when you start thinking about persons who are coming in, as, you know, visitors, non-nationals, and coming to do business or coming as tourists, you know, whenever that starts back again. How do we deal with that, especially the visitors? Because, you know, somebody, they come here as a tourist. They come to stay in a hotel. They come for a week, maybe 2 weeks at the most.
Yes.
And they have to quarantine for that period of time. That's your whole vacation gone.
Dr. Friday said that he is disappointed with the amount of testing that are being done for the virus in SVG.
Said that we have a PCR machine here now. We have the ability to test, but we're still not testing. It's no point having a machine if you're not doing it. We have up to 5 machines that have been donated. I was dismayed to read in the paper last week that the chief medical officer was saying that the trained personnel are not here. We don't have a facility in which to do it. You have to put the samples and treat it in a particular way. Well, we knew this 2 months ago. They were saying that we were going to have testing capability back in April.
Yes.
You know, and the notion is that they'll do testing here using that equipment and for verification. I don't know why it has to go to Trinidad simply after that to CARFA still, but that seems to be a sort of a cautious, what's the word, the expression, an abundance of caution.
Yes.
They said, okay, we get a second opinion. Okay, fine. If you can do that in an expeditious and cost-effective way, fine. But the point is that if you have a secure border and you have, you know, widespread testing, that creates so much confidence within people. And, you know, people then go about their business.
The opposition leader is also of the view that more can be done to educate the public about the coronavirus and that the Ministry of Health's message should be more consistent.
Can be more consistent. You can't have
information.
The chief medical officer saying that, you know, yes, in close quarters with people, social distancing is still the best method of preventing transmission. And wearing a mask in public where you are in contact with other people is still a recommended procedure. They're saying now that maybe it's not as contagious or easily survivable on surfaces as they had initially said. But that said, you know, they said, okay, it's not 50% in transmission, but it's 10%. You don't know if you're going to be in that 10%, so you still have to take the precautionary measures. So that information may have been to sort of assuage some people's anxieties, but it doesn't change our practices, because if it is possible, and they're saying it's still very possible to contact, to become infected from contact with surfaces, then you still have to take the precautions.
Sharing his thoughts on the ongoing protests in the United States over the death of an unarmed black man, George Floyd, by a white police officer, which has received condemnation worldwide, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on NBC Radio Today said the situation cannot be dealt with violence and guns.
That these are things which you can't solve with bombs and bullets and guns and bullying. This requires painstaking work of a serious kind to build a new society, a new framework. And there are many, many fantastic things about America. But this problem, they got to deal with it, and it's affecting the world. That's why it says it has an international dimension. Affecting us too, because a lot of mothers are very careful about wanting to send their young black sons to America.
Pointing out that the problem of racism started more than 400 years ago, PM Gonzalez said it has now reached a stage where it has to be addressed.
The issue involving this 400-year problem of racism. Of course, progress has been made over the last 50 years. So, and slavery came to an end in the latter part in the 1860s in the United States. The first African slaves were taken forcibly to Virginia in 1619. So it's 401 years. And there's this problem. It's a domestic problem, but it's a domestic problem which is so persistent that it has assumed international dimensions.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday says he stands in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement against racial injustice and police violence in the U.S. with the recent case of George Floyd's murder. Speaking on WFM last evening, Dr. Friday said he hopes for peaceful protests which will lead to meaningful change.
You know, this might be a tipping point where people are saying, let's look at ourselves and see why is it that these things happen, and you know, why black people are being killed at the hands of police officers. And they seem to be happening so, and not just police officers. I mean, you have the Arbery case where, you know, a young man was jogging in the park and persons suspect him of no good, and they thought that this was their right to go and accost him and essentially kill him.
Yes.
You know, I mean, these things, they do create a sense of outrage. You know, it should never be helplessness. But when you see it happening for so long, as somebody said, for 400 years, black people in America, they have been crying out for a recognition, acknowledgement of their humanity. You know, could be more basic than that? And when you see people stand up and people of all races that have come out and said, this is too much. And I trust that there will be peaceful protests that will lead to meaningful change. I mean, that's what we all want.
The opposition leader said that the United States is not like any other country. It is a very powerful country which has a great impact on the world, and that every country must be concerned of what is going on in the USA.
Listen, the United States is a democratic country. They have their presidential elections every 4 years, Congress elections for Congress, and so on, and they will go through their usual periods of heightened political activity, and someone will be declared the winner at the end of the day. And of course, the United States is a country. It's not just like any other country.
Your thoughts are with Joe Biden.
I don't get a vote, as it is, so it doesn't matter what my thoughts are one way or another as to who should win or who will win. The point of the matter is that what I was saying is that the United States of America, why we all have to take an interest in what's happening, is because it's the most powerful country in the world, militarily and economically, and it affects so much of what happens in the world. And for us here in the Caribbean, as you know, I mean, the United States, they say that we are, you know, in the United States backyard, we are in the front yard, you know, we are basically intimately connected through family.
In other news, after almost 2 months at home due to the coronavirus, today grade 5 students across the country returned to their classrooms with the exception of those from 10 primary schools. The Ministry of Education had earlier indicated that these schools are unable to adequately accommodate their grade 5 students who will continue online engagement for the rest of the school term. At the Dorset Hill Government School, all 9 grade 5 students turned up for school today and were excited to be back in their classroom.
Malia, and I'm very excited to come back to school today, mostly for learning and to meet my friends.
It's like you start to get lazy and then you get nothing to do.
So you're glad to be back?
Yes.
My name is Savanta Gibson and today we'll be doing geometry. I'm happy to come back to school because for the past few days home was boring, and how everybody loves to come to school to read and do work, that's why I love it too.
The head teacher of the school, who spoke off camera, said given the small number of students, they anticipate no major challenge and that she will ensure all the established protocols are followed by teachers and students.
They wash their hands, go to the class, they sit in their seats. We don't allow them to mingle, play. When it's break time, they have their break right in their seat. They throw the garbage in the bin right there. They're allowed one at a time to go and wash their hands. Same thing applies when it's lunch. We take the lunch to them, the cook, the secretary and I. We also have the counselor here on hand in case of anything. We take the lunch to them. When they're finished eating, we go back, take the wares from them back to the kitchen. One by one again they wash their hands and come back to class. When they're leaving, they wash their hands before they go through the gate. At break time and lunch time, we sanitize the bathroom areas and where they're sitting during the course of the day.
The grade 6 students, who were the first to return to their classrooms on Monday, May 25th, have less than 3 weeks before they sit the Caribbean Exit Assessment Examination, or CPEA. Today, the Dorset Hill Government School held a mock exam for the grade 6 students to assess their level of readiness for the regional exam.
So far, the students have been enthusiastic in returning to school. Right now, we are doing practice and more practice as they prepare for the exam in the next 3 weeks. Yes, we're actually doing a mock exam today, and I have prepared them for it. So I'm just hoping that they put their best foot forward, because this is what is going to show what abilities they have for the actual CPEA exam.
In light of the threat of COVID-19, the Ministry of Education has made transportation arrangements for all students and teachers attending school to get them to and from school. The majority of vendors along the waterfront at Little Tokyo, known as the seawall vendors, are no longer there plying their trade. The vendors were asked to remove their structures to make way for the port modernization project, and over the weekend the authorities ensured that the structures were removed before the compensation payment were made to these vendors. Today, our news team visited the area where a few vendors remain. Speaking off camera, some say they are not happy with the way they are being treated, noting that more thought should have been given to their removal.
And like you're supposed to stay home, that can't walk like that. What is $4,500? How far it's going to carry you? We, the older vendors, had considered, okay, we don't want no money. We want somewhere that we could sell. They say they hand over for your sell. Anyway, you're going to put out your cart, they come and they move it. The same $4,500, they could turn it over, buy drinks with it, and go on. I don't understand, and it really troubling my mind. It's somewhere for we to sell. We wanted, we ain't run for the money with the last of the shed will come down. Because my thing was, you give me somewhere for sell, you could keep the money. But because some of them don't run and break down the shed early, people them and don't collect the money, we ain't have no choice. what they expect we to do? The government is not in the position of creating employment for us today, nor next week. We got bills to pay. Some we got really little higher purchase. You got your light bill, you got children going to school, and $4,500 can't do nothing for you.
You still owe coats. You still have to pay couriers for lumber. You understand? That money done already. It done. So people have to come here and survive. They have to come and sell. And just like in Barbados, all them kind of places, you have people who tent in the bus terminal, you have people who tent, and after when they finish, they pack up the tent and they go. There is no way in Kingston to put the people. You go try to go upstairs, you know, thinking now you're asking for a shed upstairs in the market. They only tell you about no, they full up. One person have about 6 stalls in the market, and they still there on the street hustling. That is unfair.
Because right now, a little 4 grand 5. How you look at a little 4 grand 5? I do so that done in bill. So when the 4 grand 5 done, and he move you in a different area, and you run you from there. Tell me what you're going to do for life now. All them things are cars, robbing and thieving.
Yeah, man, I just message people them wrong the place. Because everybody cannot go home and just sit down and just, you know me, 4,500 money for the people them go home and sit down.
Another vendor who said she has been plying her trade in the area for decades said she was told under no uncertain terms to desist from doing so, which is not right.
For vacate immediately, and that can't work. How that can work? And bring around police and all kind of thing, like if you thieving something and it's telling you if you don't move, he going to bring chuck and confiscate your things. That could ever be right. Not trouble them looking for. Trouble they're looking for with people, because me can't stand up as a big woman when me don't spend me how much hundreds of dollars and buy my thing and them and watch nobody come and take them up and throw them in a truck. Problem go there. So me understand they need to deal with this here different. It can't be nobody ain't satisfied with it. Who's satisfied with that? It's only them who ain't who had a gamble shed and all them thing they ain't go concerned, but people with responsibilities. People with responsibilities have to be concerned, because what is your next move?
In December 2019, the Board of Directors of the Caribbean Development Bank approved financing for the Port Rehabilitation Project. Modernization project, The first phase of the project will be the construction of new cargo port facilities, the rerouting of an existing sewage line, and associated road works. Earlier this year, Cabinet approved a sum of $275,000 to compensate the 60 vendors who were plying their trade on the seawall prior to March 31st, 2019. The compensation makes provision for the 3 months income support for the vendors of $715 per month, which is in addition to the value of their structure, removal allowance, and timely removal bonus. In other news, police have arrested and charged John Otter, a 40-year-old laborer of Lomans Windward, Union Island, with wounding. According to investigations, the accused man allegedly stabbed the virtual complainant on the neck with an unknown object. The incident occurred at Lomans Windward on May 30th. Otter is expected to appear before the magistrate court to answer the charge. And the police are investigating the circumstances surrounding a report of aggravated burglary and attempted murder on a 52-year-old chauffeur. According to the police, at about 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday, June 2nd, the assailant or assailants entered the dwelling house of the virtual complainant as a trespasser, armed with a gun, and shot the virtual complainant on his upper right arm. Police are seeking the assistance of the public in obtaining any information that will lead to the apprehension and prosecution of the offender or offenders in this matter.